He told me he didn't want anyone to know about me, just a secret he kept hidden from the world. But I wasn't going to be anyone's secret. So I gave myself a name he couldn't ignore. The black woman the billionaire is in love with. Here's my story. Before we dive in, hit that like button if you love stories with a twist. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the real drama behind the scenes. I'm not usually the type to get swept off my feet, but the day I met him, something felt different. I'm just a regular woman, living my life, going about my business when suddenly, out of nowhere, our paths crossed. It wasn't planned, no grand event or fancy party, just a simple moment that changed everything. He walked into the room with this calm, almost magnetic presence. There was something about him, a quiet strength, a mystery that pulled you in without saying a word. I remember thinking, who is this man? He didn't have to try, he just naturally stood out. At first, he seemed distant, like he was guarding a part of himself I couldn't reach right away. But underneath that distance, there was something else, something curious. Like he was quietly observing me, trying to figure me out without rushing, without pushing. I could feel the pull between us, electric but subtle, like a secret language only we understood. It was strange but exciting, like meeting someone who carries a whole other world behind their eyes. From the start, I sensed this wasn't going to be like any other connection I'd ever had. He was closed off in ways that made me want to know more, yet there was also this unspoken rule. Things had to stay quiet, under wraps. I didn't fully understand it then, but I felt the weight of that secrecy early on. It wasn't just about him keeping things private, it felt like I was being hidden. And that feeling stayed with me, like a shadow in the background of what could have been something beautiful. Little did I know, that secret would become the defining part of our story. After that first meeting, things moved quickly. Well, at least for me. We started talking more, texting late into the night, sharing pieces of our lives. But even as the connection grew stronger, there was always this invisible wall between us. He was careful about where and when we met. No public places, no pictures, no hints to friends or family. It was like we existed in a bubble that only we could see. At first, I thought it was just caution. Maybe he was a private person, or maybe he had reasons to keep his personal life away from the spotlight. I tried to tell myself it wasn't a big deal. Secret relationships happen, right? Sometimes people need space to figure things out before they go public. I told myself I could wait, that the right time would come. But deep down, a small voice kept whispering that this wasn't normal. Not for me. Every time we met, it felt like a stolen moment, something precious but fragile. We would share dinners in dimly lit rooms, long walks where no one could see us, and whispered conversations that felt like a secret code. He was affectionate, kind in his own way, but always cautious. The way he looked over his shoulder or suddenly checked his phone when someone passed by told me he was guarding me and himself from the world. I started noticing the little things that made me uncomfortable. He never introduced me to his close friends. If his phone rang when we were together, he'd quickly hide it or take the call somewhere private. Social media was a no-go, no posts, no mentions. I wasn't even allowed to have photos of us. It was like I was supposed to disappear once I left his side. That hurt more than I expected. I began to question what I meant to him. Was I just a distraction, a secret indulgence, someone he could hide away without anyone knowing? The idea that I was something he wanted only behind closed doors stung deeply. I wanted to be proud of what we had, not something to be ashamed of. One night, I asked him directly, "Why can't we be seen? Why do we have to hide like this?" His answer was soft but firm. "It's complicated. People don't understand. They won't accept it." He talked about his world, how careful he had to be with his image, his family expectations, and how rumors could ruin everything. I understood his fears, but I also realized that I couldn't keep living in the shadows. I deserved more than whispered conversations and secret meetings. I deserved to be acknowledged, celebrated even. I deserved to be seen, not just by him, but by the world. That night marked a turning point for me. I knew I had to stop being just a secret, a hidden piece of someone else's life. I had to take control of my story, own it, and most importantly, own myself. Because no matter how much he wanted to keep me a secret, I was going to be loud and proud about who I was and who he was in love with. I'll never forget the moment it hit me fully, that I was just his secret. It wasn't just in the way he avoided showing me off or how he dodged questions about us. It was in the quiet little things, the things I caught but didn't want to see. One evening, I was at his place waiting for him to finish a call. I wasn't supposed to be there, but he'd insisted. As I sat quietly in the living room, my phone buzzed with a message from one of his close friends. Out of curiosity, I glanced at it and froze. The message said something like, "You still keeping that secret hidden? When are you going to tell everyone about the woman he's with?" That's when it hit me hard. I was a secret not just to the world, but even to the people closest to him. The people who mattered in his life didn't know I existed, and it was by choice. Before that, I'd hoped maybe they just hadn't met yet. Maybe he was protecting me. But now I realized I was being kept away because the truth wasn't welcome. I wasn't the proud woman standing beside him. I was the shadow he wanted to hide. I sat there for what felt like hours, thinking about everything we'd been through. All those stolen moments, the late-night talks, the laughter, the dreams we shared. It felt like a private little world, but it was built on something fragile and hidden. That night, I started to ask myself the hard questions. What did I want? What did I deserve? Could I keep living like this, an invisible part of someone else's life? The answer was clear. No. I decided then that I wasn't going to be anyone's secret anymore, not his, not anyone's. I wasn't going to shrink or hide or pretend to be something less than who I was. I was a woman with her own story, her own worth, and I deserved to be seen and celebrated. So I made a plan. I wasn't going to yell it from the rooftops or cause drama. Instead, I would own my identity on my own terms. I gave myself a name, something bold, something that no one could ignore, the black woman the billionaire is in love with. It wasn't just a label, it was a declaration, a way to take back control and show the world I wasn't hiding anymore. I started small. I told a few close friends, dropped subtle hints on social media without revealing too much, and most importantly, I carried myself differently. Confidence became my armor. The more I owned that title, the less power his secrecy had over me. When I finally confronted him, I wasn't angry, I was honest. I told him I loved him, but I couldn't keep living in the shadows. I needed to be proud of what we had, not ashamed or hidden away. It was a turning point, not just for us, but for me. That moment of clarity, that refusal to accept being a secret, changed everything. Because sometimes the biggest love story isn't just about being loved. It's about loving yourself enough to demand the respect and visibility you deserve. After that conversation, I knew things couldn't stay the same. I couldn't just sit back and be the invisible part of his life anymore. I needed to take charge, to make sure my presence was felt, not just by him, but by everyone around us. So I started small. I began by telling a few of my closest friends about what I was really dealing with. The secret relationship, the silence, the hidden love. It felt good to finally say it out loud. I gave myself that name, the black woman the billionaire is in love with, as a reminder of my worth and to flip the script on what everyone expected. It wasn't about arrogance or showing off, it was about owning my truth. Next, I changed how I carried myself. I stopped shrinking when we were together. I smiled openly, laughed without hesitation, and made sure my confidence showed whenever we were in public, even if no one knew who we were. I wanted people to see me as someone proud and strong, not someone who should be hidden away. Then I took to social media, but very carefully. I posted photos of myself, moments of joy and strength, but nothing that directly showed him or gave away our relationship. Still, it was enough to start a quiet buzz among my circle. People began to ask questions, and I didn't shy away. I hinted at something more, something powerful, without revealing the full story. It was my way of saying, I'm here, I'm real, and I'm proud. When I finally confronted him again, this time it wasn't with tears or frustration, it was with calm confidence. I told him, I'm done being your secret. I am not something to be hidden away because you're afraid of what others might think. I'm the woman you love, and that should be something we share, not hide. He was shocked. I saw it in his eyes, the realization that I was no longer willing to play by his rules. He tried to explain his fears again, the judgment, the expectations, the pressures from his world. But this time, I didn't back down. I told him that love isn't about fear or shame, it's about pride and openness. That moment changed everything. He didn't immediately change, and neither did I. But a shift had begun. Our relationship was no longer one-sided, no longer about him controlling what others saw. I had taken my power back. I wasn't just the woman behind closed doors anymore. I was the woman who owned her story, her identity, and her place in his life and the world. By introducing myself as the black woman the billionaire is in love with, I claimed the respect and visibility I deserved, and honestly, it felt liberating. When I told him I wasn't going to be his secret anymore, the look on his face was something I'll never forget. It was a mix of shock, confusion, and honestly, a bit of fear. I could tell he wasn't used to me standing my ground like that. He started explaining himself, trying to make me understand why he had kept everything hidden. He talked about the world he lived in, how ruthless people could be, how quickly rumors spread, and how much pressure he felt to keep up appearances. He was scared that if people knew about me, things would fall apart. His family, his business, even his friendships. It all seemed fragile in his eyes. I listened, but I didn't back down. I told him, I get it. I know you're scared, but I'm not something to be ashamed of. I'm not your secret to protect or hide. I'm your woman, the one you love. And love is supposed to be fearless. The conversation got heated. We argued about trust, about respect, about what it really means to be in love. He said he needed time to figure things out. I said I needed to be seen now. It wasn't easy. I felt his walls going up again, but I also saw a glimpse of the man who cared deeply, even if his fears held him back. That clash wasn't just about us. It was about what it meant to be vulnerable and real in a world that demands perfection. In that moment, I realized love isn't always perfect. Sometimes it's messy, complicated, and uncomfortable. But standing up for myself was worth every hard word and every tense silence. That night, we didn't have all the answers. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to live in the shadows anymore. Not for him, not for anyone. After that intense conversation, things didn't magically fix themselves overnight. He needed time to process what I'd said, and honestly, so did I. Our relationship was at a crossroads, and neither of us knew exactly where it would lead. In the days that followed, I noticed subtle changes. He started showing up differently, not just physically, but emotionally. He was less guarded around me, more willing to share his thoughts and fears. I saw cracks in his walls, glimpses of the man behind the billionaire mask. But even with those small steps, the secret still lingered between us. He wasn't ready to fully bring me out into the open. Maybe it was fear, maybe pride, or maybe something deeper. I can't say for sure. What I do know is that I refused to settle for less than I deserved. Through it all, I grew stronger. I stopped waiting for him to decide my worth. Instead, I focused on myself, on my dreams, my passions, and my happiness. I reminded myself daily that my value wasn't tied to his approval or the spotlight he feared. I started living openly as the black woman the billionaire is in love with. Not because I needed his permission, but because I wanted the world to know my truth. It became my way of reclaiming power, of turning pain into pride. Our story didn't end with a perfect happily ever after, at least not yet. But it became a story of growth, courage, and self-love. A story that reminds me, and hopefully reminds you too, that no one should ever make you feel like you're less than worthy of love, respect, and visibility. If anything, this journey taught me that being true to yourself is the most powerful thing you can do, even when it scares the people you care about. So here I am, still standing, still proud, and still ready to write the next chapter on my own terms. If you've ever felt like someone kept you a secret, remember you deserve to be celebrated out loud. Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to stay connected. Your voice matters.